Arrival in satin and steel chauffeured car rolled to a purring stop outside the San Marino Hall of Philanthropy, and for a split second, Sandra Bullock considered feigning car trouble and ghosting the event entirely, but she took a breath, forced her nerves back into their corner, and stepped out into the crisp evening air like she owned every molecule of oxygen in the vicinity. Her crimson silk gown rippled under the chandeliers like liquid fire. Diamonds, no. She wore a vintage garnet brooch that had once belonged to her mother, pinned close to her heart, because sometimes glamour had better roots in memory than money. The paparazzi burst into a symphony of shutter clicks and shouts. "Sandra, over here, Miss Bullock, one smile, love the dress, is it Valentino?" She gave them what they came for, the iconic smile, the classic over-the-shoulder glance, and just to keep the mystery alive, a playful wink. Inside, the venue was an explosion of luxury gold filigree railings, bespoke floral arrangements, and a live string quartet playing Vivaldi as if their student loans depended on it. The smell of saffron and imported lavender clung to the air like invisible designer perfume, and at the epicenter of it all, moving like queens through a court of couture, stood the terrible trio. Chapter 2, Queens of the Gilded Cagevery Hawksworth, Lisette Montclair, and Portia Caldwell. Sandra recognized them instantly. Avery, real estate mogul's wife, ice blonde, smile sharper than divorce papers. Lisette, heiress to a vegan lipstick empire, always looked like she smelled faintly of judgment and gardenias. Portia, the Instagram socialite with 5.2 million followers and no discernible personality beyond gold filters and bottled giggles. Sandy, Avery chirped, air-kissing the space near Sandra's cheek with all the warmth of a tax audit. "You look so authentic. That's brave these days." "Thanks," Sandra replied, eyebrows raised. "You look hydraulically flawless." "Oh." "Stop," Avery trilled, delighted but uncertain if she'd been insulted. Lisette's icy gaze slid down Sandra's gown. "Who made this? Looks sentimental." "It was my mom's favorite color," Sandra said, not flinching. Portia blinked. "Wait, you're still doing movies, right? I mean, do they still make those?" Sandra smiled, sweet and steel-tipped. "Yes, just between TikToks." The trio's laughter was more of a synchronized performance than a spontaneous reaction. They didn't notice the violinist next to them flinch at the shrillness. Chapter 3, The Gallery of Good Intention. Sandra peeled away and floated toward the silent auction gallery, rows of priceless memorabilia lined like trophies. Signed guitars, a pair of Muhammad Ali's gloves, a once-worn Elton John cape. But what caught her eye was a framed piece of crayon art, a bright orange tiger, awkwardly rendered but powerful in its earnestness, next to wobbly green text, "Red Books. Save Tigers." She smiled. Seriously, Lisette's voice appeared at her shoulder like an unwelcome tax audit. "Someone donated kindergarten art. How quaint." Portia leaned in. "It's probably from that school in Pacoima. They always send us weird stuff." Sandra kept her voice even. "It's from a kid named Darnell. He's 8. He reads at a 9th grade level. This drawing? It's not quaint, it's fierce." Avery gave a flutter of eyelashes. "Oh honey, we don't critique the art. We critique the taste. And you're all tastemakers," Sandra said, still looking at the tiger. "Well, this one's going home with me." She moved on, trailing a quiet storm of dignity behind her. Chapter 4, Beneath the Glitter, a kitchen of kindness needing a breath. Sandra ducked into a hallway lined with staff-only doors. Following the scent of roasted garlic and rosemary, she found herself in the bustling catering kitchen, a flurry of chef whites, saucepans, and carefully choreographed chaos. Near the back, a teenage girl in a wrinkled polo shirt was trying and failing to stack a leaning tower of cream puffs for the dessert table. Caramel drizzle dripped like sugar lava. Panic flickered across the girl's face. "Want a second pair of hands?" Sandra asked. The girl looked up and nearly dropped the spatula. You're Sandra Bullock," she stammered. In the pastry flesh, Sandra grinned. "Now let's tame the sugar tower." The two worked together, balancing profiteroles like edible Jenga pieces. Sandra learned the girl's name was Mia Nguyen, a 17-year-old volunteer and scholarship hopeful who spent her weekends tutoring kids in her neighborhood library. They invited me here as part of the community spotlight, Mia said, licking caramel off her thumb, but no one's talked to me. I think one woman asked if I was the coat check girl. Sandra's smile faltered for a second before returning. You're not invisible. They're just nearsighted from staring at themselves. Too long, Mia laughed. Is it like this in Hollywood? Worse, Sandra said. But we get better snacks. Chapter 5. The sparkling sabotage back in the ballroom. Guests began migrating toward the grand staircase where the terrace awaited them. Sandra returned to find Avery, Lisette, and Portia still clustered near the champagne fountain like dragons, guarding liquid gold. Oh, there she is, Portia called out, the queen of custard. Helping in the kitchen, Avery said, eyes wide. That's so gritty of you. Lisette held up a flute of rose. I'd toast you, but I'd probably spill something, like, say, water, with that. She stepped a little too close and accidentally elbowed Sandra's glass, sending a splash of water down the front of her crimson gown. Oh no, Lisette said. So Fox concerned it hurt. Silk is so unforgiving. Sandra looked down at the stain, and then up at her. Calm, clear, cold. It's okay, she said, voice smooth as velvet. Water dries, insecurity lingers. Avery sucked in a breath. Portia's giggle cracked mid-note. Sandra didn't wait for a reply. She walked away, with Silk clinging to her like a battle flag. Chapter 6. Eyes in the shadows in the upper mezzanine. Half hidden in the shadows behind a potted orchid, stood Keanu Reeves. He was supposed to remain anonymous. Tonight's surprise guest, the silent benefactor who'd pledged to match all funds up to $10 million for the Children's Literacy Initiative. He'd told the organizers no spotlights, no speeches. I just want to help. But now he was watching a woman stand alone against cruelty and still choose grace over vengeance. Damn, he muttered. She's tougher than John Wick in a library. His mind was made up. The time for hiding was almost over. Chapter 7. A powder room and a promise. Sandra stood in front of the gilded bathroom mirror. Her gown was drying, but her patience was not. She stared at her reflection, older than when she started, wiser than they'll ever know, and still unwilling to become bitter just to be taken seriously. Remember why you're here, she whispered, to her own reflection. Not for them, for the kids, for Mia, for Darnell and his tiger. She squared her shoulders and walked back into the ballroom with a calm fire in her eyes. Because grace wasn't weakness, it was defiance, dressed in dignity. Chapter 1. Echoes of empty hallways. The Gala's music faded into background fuzz as Sandra stepped into a quieter hallway to collect herself. Gold sconces flickered along the velvet-lined corridor, casting soft shadows against her still damp gown. She let her fingertips trail along the wall as she walked, more for grounding than aesthetics. There were parties where you mingled, and there were parties where you endured. This had become the latter. She exhaled deeply and leaned against a marble column, gaze drifting. And just like that, memory cracked a damn wide open. Chapter 2. The girl in the green corduroy was 7. The first time someone called her trailer trash. Not to her face, of course. Grown-ups didn't always say things to your face. They said it within earshot, in whispers, through forced smiles that crinkled to perfectly. Her mother had taken a job cleaning vacation homes in Santa Clarita. Sandra would sit in the corner with her worn copy of Charlotte's Web, while her mom scrubbed marble countertops and replenished tiny bottles of shampoo. That probably cost more than their weekly groceries. One day, a client, heels clicking like miniature gavels, walked in early. She spotted Sandra on the carpet. And who's this? The woman asked, a tone wrapped in cellophane sweetness. My daughter. Her mother replied simply. Oh, I thought you people didn't mix work and home. That night, Sandra asked her mother what you people meant. Her mom didn't answer immediately, just kept peeling carrots. Finally, she said, sometimes people say ugly things to make themselves feel taller. But baby, you don't grow by cutting others down, you grow by rising. Those words welded themselves into Sandra's bones. Chapter 3. Middle School, otherwise known as the Thunderdemist. Forward to age 12. Sandra had grown into gangly limbs and knobby knees. Her backpack was 2 sizes too big, and her shoes were hand-me-downs from a cousin who believed socks were optional. One particular week, she developed a habit of eating lunch in the janitor's closet. Why? Because Amanda Broyles had declared Sandra's tuna sandwich smelled like public school sadness and invited the entire lunch table to vote her most likely to be a spinster with cats. Ironically, Sandra liked cats, but she didn't like crying in bathroom stalls. One day, while trying to avoid Amanda's clique, Sandra slipped into the library and found herself face to face with Mrs. Elkins, the school librarian who wore mismatched earrings and smelled like coffee and old books. "You look like you need a fortress," Mrs. Elkins had said, without asking questions. From then on, the library became her lunchroom, her sanctuary, her hiding place. Mrs. Elkins introduced her to Toni Morrison, Jane Austen, and a third-hand thesaurus so worn the word resilient had a coffee ring around it. Chapter 4, Scenes from a Young Struggler's Life. Feat 16. Sandra auditioned for the school play on a dare. The role was Juliet. She got cast as nurse. #to 2 lines. One costume that looked like it had been stolen from a 1987 production of Annie. But on opening night, something happened. She stood on stage, under real lights, in front of real people, and for the first time ever when she spoke, nobody laughed, nobody pointed, they listened. She came off stage electric, high on the fact that she could transform into someone else, someone bold, someone who made people feel things. After the show, her mom hugged her with damp eyes and whispered, "You didn't just play a part, honey, you found one of your own." Chapter 5. Hollywood's half-smile. Years later, when she made it to Hollywood, Sandra quickly learned the place ran on caffeine, rejection, and the ability to smile while being ignored. She waited tables in Westwood. She auditioned for commercials where the only direction was be thinner. She shared a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 aspiring stunt doubles and a tarantula named Kevin. Don't ask, when she landed her first real role, a 2-line part in a soap opera, she cried into her apron. Success came slowly, and then all at once, suddenly. She was the girl from Speed, While You Were Sleeping, and that NASA movie where she screamed in space. Everyone knew her, everyone wanted her, but she never forgot the sting of being dismissed. Which is why, even years later, standing in a room full of $1,000,000 smiles and carbon-copied gowns, she could still hear Amanda Broyles' voice in the back of her head. Chapter 1. Sugar Towers and Secret Seeds. Mia Nguyen's caramel-glazed profiterole tower survived the trip. From kitchen to ballroom intact, though its architect almost didn't. She stood frozen just inside the doors, the tray trembling in her hands like an over-caffeinated tuning fork. "Deep breath," Sandra whispered, materializing beside her. "Remember, you built a skyscraper out of pastry. Wall Street wishes it had that stability." Mia let out a half-giggle, half-sigh. "They're all staring. They're staring at the tower," Sandra said, eyes twinkling. "Which means you're already a wonder of the culinary world. Now go center of the dessert table. Just like Chef wanted. You got this." Mia inhaled, squared her shoulders, and stepped into the glitter. Champagne chatter faded behind her, replaced by the quiet hum of personal victory. Sandra watched until the tower landed safely, then slipped away through the crowd. She had no idea a single pep talk had nudged the first domino of the night. Chapter to domino number 1, Luis and the Silver Trace. Luis Herrera, a 19-year-old busboy with a scholarship hanging on this internship, saw Mia's grin as she set down the profiteroles. He didn't know what Sandra had said. He only saw Mia's sudden backbone. If she can do hard things tonight, so can I, he thought, moments later, while clearing cocktail glasses near Avery Hawksworth's cluster of socialites. He overheard the trio mocking a violinist's frayed bow. Luis hovered. The violinist Elena Kozlova, 63. Gray hair in a bun kept her posture regal, but her cheeks pinked at the Snickers. When she set her battered violin case down to adjust the tie, Avery's elbow accidentally tipped a glass of Pinot Gris onto it. Giggles, a careless oops. Luis reacted before the wine finished its arc. One quick step, silver tray up glass. Caught midair like a scene from The Matrix. Not a drop hit the case. "Nice hands," Elena whispered. Astonished, "Used to play shortstop," Luis whispered back. "Sir." "Ma'am, let me get you a fresh napkin." Avery's apology never came, But Luis didn't wait for thanks. He simply handed Elena the world's unfanciest bar napkin, offered a reassuring nod, and hustled on. Chapter 3 Domino Number 2 Priya and the Missing Microphone. Asprai Kapoor, the event's 28-year-old logistics manager, was mid-panic over a creative wireless mix that had vanished somewhere between the AV booth and oblivion. If she didn't solve it in 10 minutes, the live auction would resemble amateur karaoke. Luis entered lugging a tub of dirty glassware. "Everything okay, Ms. Kapoor?" She blinked. "Surrounded by crystal, and the only thing broken is my comm. Missing mix, I can help." "Look," Luis offered, already setting his tub aside. Together they traced cables, interrogated startled stagehands, and finally discovered the microphones in a broom closet, misdelivered with cleaning supplies. Priya laughed, relief and exhaustion in equal measure. "How'd you stay so chill?" she asked. "Someone caught my fall earlier," Luis shrugged. "Felt right to pass it on." Priya made a mental note. "When hiring new interns, start with that one." Chapter for Domino Number 3 Elena and the bow. With 9 lives with her violin case safely, wine-free, Elena headed backstage for the pre-dinner intermezzo performance. She'd been freelancing orchestras for decades, but tonight's gig paid triple scale money she needed to keep her late sister's medical bills from eating the last of her savings. While tightening her bow, she noticed the frayed horsehair was worse than she feared. One strand snapped, then another. At this rate, the bow might not survive a single sonata. Priya rushed past, still buzzing from the microphone rescue. "Elena, 2 minutes." Elena exhaled through a tremor of shame. "I can't ask for an advance," she thought. "I can't afford a new bow." Then she remembered the young busboy's sure hands and kind eyes. She remembered being saved without fanfare. "I will not let fear mute me, Elena," Priya prompted. I need a favor," Elena whispered. "I have an emergency bow repair kit in my car." But Priya already had her radio out. "Tony, get the artist's keys. We're running a 2-minute sprint to the valet bay." 10 breathless minutes later, thanks to Priya's backstage authority and Tony's track star legs, Elena held a patched-up bow that would last the set. Maybe not perfect, but PLAYABLE. Music soared. The audience gave a standing ovation, and Avery Hawksworth frowned, wondering why the old violinist suddenly looked taller. Chapter 5 Domino Number for Strings, Sorbet, and Lisette's cracked facade. Lisette Montclair never missed a photo op, but classical solos bored her. She retreated to the gelato cart on the side terrace. Vanilla bean safe, pictured well on social. But the scooper, a college freshman named Alex, juggled to metal tubs and dropped the serving spoon with a hideous clang. Gelato splattered Lisette's gown, pale lavender silk, price tag north of 5 digits. Her shriek sliced through Vivaldi. Alex stammered apologies, cheeks scarlet, but Lisette's tongue was sharper. "Do you have any idea this dress is worth your tuition for a decade?" Elena, walking by post-performance, paused. She recognized a certain anguish in Alex's eyes, the look of someone about to call home crying. Elena stepped in. "Accidents happen, silk washes, ego stains are tougher." Lisette spun. "Excuse me." Elena held Lisette's gaze. 63 years of backstage chaos and border crossings had tempered her. "That boy's working to stay in school. He's not your punching bag." Lisette froze. No one had ever spoken to her like that, certainly not someone wearing thrift store shoes. A photographer raised a camera. Conflict made great candidates, but Lisette lowered her voice, cheeks flaming. "Fine, just get me soda water." Alex scrambled for club soda. Elena offered a quiet nod of approval, and a crisis became a lesson. Lisette watched Elena walk away. Something in her chest, a rusted hinge of conscience, creaked open. Chapter 6 Domino Number 5 Portia and the Power of a First Look. Portia Caldwell's vlogging instincts sensed juicy content after Lisette's gelato mishap. She angled her phone, whispering to followers, "Marble floor meltdown, stay tuned." As she sought better lighting, she nearly collided with Mia, who was replacing empty profiterole plates. "Watch it, sweetheart." Portia snapped, cameras rolling. Mia flushed but steadied the platter. Portia's ring-light eyes registered the dessert tower, perfect for B-roll. "That's cute." Portia cooed to her 5.2 million fans. A teen volunteer made mini cream puff Jenga. In that instant, Elena's violin encore drifted in from the ballroom rich, haunting. The melody caught Portia off guard. She lowered her phone just long enough to feel something human. Mia noticed. Beautiful, right? Portia nodded, almost shy. I played cello when I was 12. Why'd you stop? Portia shrugged. Clicks are louder than concertos. Mia's response wasn't judgmental, just gentle. Maybe clicks need concertos sometimes. Portia swallowed. The live stream had frozen anyway. Poor signal on the terrace. She pocketed her phone, surprised by how light her hand felt without it. Chapter 7. Domino number 6. Avery's daughter and the paper tiger. Auction inside. Auction paddles waved like pastel wings. Item number 17. A private safari in Botswana had just sparked a bidding war. Avery Hawksworth's 12-year-old daughter, Olivia, sat at their table, absorbed in her tablet until an usher delivered a small framed drawing. The tiger. Sandra's bid had won earlier, but she'd quietly asked staff to deliver it to Olivia, the only kid attending the gala. Anonymous note attached, for the next girl who loves stories. May this tiger guard your imagination. Olivia's eyes widened. She flipped the note, recognized Sandra's signature, and beamed. Avery noticed the drawing in frown. Child art. Tacky, but her daughter's delight was undeniable. Olivia bolted from her seat, clutching the frame, and wove through tables, until she found Sandra near the stage. Thank you, Olivia squeaked. I'm writing a book about a tiger who learns to read Braille. This is perfect. Sandra knelt to eye level. That tiger's name is Darnell. He's 8 and reading well above grade, but the jungle library needs donors. Think he'd like to meet your tiger? Olivia nodded vigorously. Avery arrived, breathless. She opened her mouth ready to reprimand or at least reclaim control, but Olivia wrapped an arm around Sandra's shoulders. Mom, Ms. Bullock saves tigers too. Avery glanced around, eyes on her, some approving, some amused. Backfiring social optics her greatest fear. She forced a smile, extended a hand to Sandra. Thank you for inspiring my daughter. She managed. Sandra shook it. Thank her back. She's the next author on the bestseller list. Avery found herself strangely moved and terrified by the feeling. Chapter 8. Domino number 7. Keanu's quiet calculus. From the rear of the ballroom, Keanu Reeves observed every ripple. The busboy's catch, the librarian-fueled pep talk, the influencer. Lowering her phone. He wasn't eavesdropping, just collecting evidence. Humankind. Exhibit A, even in a barrel of vanity. A teaspoon of kindness could start a current strong enough to move cargo ships. Time to tip the ocean, he decided. Keanu adjusted his cufflinks, each engraved with the Japanese kanji for resolve, and headed toward the green room, the reveal. He'd tried to avoid all night, now felt essential, not for ego, but for equilibrium. Chapter 9. The echo chamber breaks. 30 minutes later, the MC tapped the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, a surprise guest has pledged to match tonight's total. Donations dollar for dollar up to 10 million. Gasp, murmur, head swivel. In the spirit of transparency, the MC continued. He's asked to address you personally. Please welcome Mr. Keanu Reeves. Sandra's glass paused mid-sip. Mia's jaw dropped. Avery's eyes bugged cartoon-wide. Portia's phone shot skyward, live stream resurrected. Keanu strode on stage, offering a modest wave. No sunglasses, no bodyguards, just that signature Byronic samurai meets lost puppy aura. Evening, he said, voice low, calm. I'm more comfortable riding a bus that can't slow down than speaking at galas that can't shut up. But here we are, laughter warm, surprised. I came anonymous because charity shouldn't need celebrity. But anonymity tonight would mean missing a chance to spotlight what really matters, acts that don't make headlines. He scanned the audience until his gaze landed on Sandra, then Mia, then Luis, then Elena. One by one, kindness is contagious, Keanu said. We've just witnessed a pandemic of good in this room. A volunteer steadied a dessert tower. A busboy saved a violin. A stage manager saved a performance. A musician defended dignity. A child shared imagination. These aren't viral clips, they're vital links. Break anyone, the chain collapses. Portia lowered her phone again. Live stream be damned. So, I'll match the money, Keanu concluded. But I challenge everyone here, match the kindness you've seen, tonight, tomorrow. When no cameras roll, applause. It started like rainfall scattered, tentative then swelled into thunder. Sandra felt tears threaten her mascara. She caught Mia's eye across the room. The girl was openly weeping, powdered sugar smearing under her nose, and in the back, Avery Hawksworth, who normally clapped only for stock upticks, was the loudest of all. Chapter 10 Aftershocks. 40 minutes later. The official program wrapped, dessert plates cleared. Donors queued to sign oversized checks that smelled faintly of virtue signaling. Yet pockets of genuine connection bloomed. Like midnight wildflowers. Elena showed Portia how to tune a spare cello backstage. Portia promised her 5.2 million followers a live stream duet for charity. No sponsorship, just music. Avery cornered Luis with an offer. My company funds internships. Send a resume. She surprised them both by meaning it. Lisette, wiping the last of gelato from her gown, found Mia beside the pastry cart. I was unkind, she said, words awkward as a first bike ride. We're rolling out a youth advisory board for my cosmetics line. Interested? Mia's mouth formed a perfect O. I'd love to consult on sustainability. Sandra watched these exchanges like a proud stage mom, heart swelling until it threatened the seams of her gown. Then Keanu approached, two glasses of sparkling water in hand, to the chain reaction. He toasted. Sandra clinked. May it never end. If it slows, Keanu winked, we'll just add more dominoes. She laughed. I have access to unlimited pastry, remember? Keanu's grin softened. You also have unlimited grace. People notice, Sandra shrugged. My mom planted it. Tonight, Mia watered it. You built billboards. Keanu looked around the once rarefied crowd, buzzing with unexpected warmth. Nice neighborhood to hang those billboards. They stood side by side, watching humanity sparkle brighter than any chandelier. Chapter 1 The arrival of Ghost Mata. Keanu Reeves was never late. Not to set, not to rehearsal, not to charity events disguised as red carpet ego pageants. But tonight, he deliberately walked in 22 minutes after the program began. Fashionably late. Yes, but also tactically invisible. The chauffeur dropped him a block from the San Marino Hall of Philanthropy's valet loop. Keanu had insisted. No entourage, no fanfare, no step and repeat photos. His tux was bespoke, but low profile, no sparkle. Just midnight blue and a pocket square folded so precisely it could slice drywall. He walked in through the catering staff entrance, smiled at a young guy balancing shrimp skewers on a tray. Looks amazing, man, he said, meaning it. The guy blinked. Wait, are you SHHH? Keanu grinned, pressing a finger to his lips. I'm in stealth mode. Then he disappeared into the crowd like a rumor in a fog. Chapter 2 A steak without the spotlight hadn't planned to be seen. The foundation had begged him to make a grand reveal. His donation was a matching pledge. After all, double the impact, triple the press. The director had chirped, it'll be your Oprah moment. Keanu had said no. I'm not the story, he'd explained. He was there for the kids, for literacy, for the classrooms that needed not just books, but belief systems. For the kids like he once was, quiet, awkward, bouncing between cities with a single mom who never had time to read bedtime stories, but taught him that libraries were sacred ground. So tonight, his plan was to observe, donate, and vanish. But then he saw her. Chapter 3 The tiger and the trio. Sandra Bullock stood at the silent auction table, smiling gently at a framed piece of crayon art. It was a tiger, ferocious, slightly off scale, clearly the product of someone still learning to spell library. Keanu smiled. Of course she loves that tiger, he thought. And then the wolves descended. He didn't know their names yet. Avery, Lisette, Portia, but he knew the type. Glossy hair, high heels, and low empathy. They moved around Sandra like perfume-scented jackals. Their cruelty wasn't loud, but it had teeth. One splashed water, another insulted her kindness. Sandra didn't snap, she didn't even flinch. She responded with grace so cold and elegant, it made the room feel air-conditioned. Keanu watched it all from the mezzanine, arms crossed, mouth tight. So much for staying anonymous. He thought, this story's changing mid-script. Chapter for flashbacks in tailored woolahs. He wandered deeper into the crowd. Keanu drifted in and out of conversations like a polite ghost. No one really noticed him, not yet, which was perfect. It gave him space to think. And thinking brought him back to a memory he rarely touched. Age 11. New York City. Public library on 42nd and 5th. He was supposed to be home, watching his younger sister. But he had slipped out to the library, drawn by the only world that ever made sense, books. That day, he got caught slipping a worn copy of The Outsiders into his backpack. Not stealing, just saving it for later. The librarian, a woman with cat-eye glasses and kind disappointment in her voice, took him aside. "You're not in trouble," she said. "But if you're reading like that, you need a card." She helped him fill out the form, wrote his name herself when he hesitated. And then she said something he'd never forgotten. "Books aren't a privilege, they're a parachute. You don't need to fall to earn one." That was the day Keanu became a reader. Tonight, he would return the favor. For every kid who needed a parachute and didn't even know they were falling. Chapter 5. Watching the ripples begin. Was in the corner when Mia and Sandra built the cream puff tower. He saw the smile stretch across Mia's nervous face. Saw Sandra crouch beside her like a coach, like a mentor, like someone who remembered what it felt like to not be seen. It's always the small things, Keanu thought. They don't start as revolutions. They start as tiny revolts against being ignored. He tracked Luis, the busboy who caught a wine glass mid-flight, and how he later helped the overwhelm. The logistics manager tracked down missing microphones. Saw the violinist Elena bow in gratitude. Keanu felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just a gala. It was a garden. Sandra had planted a seed. Now people were blooming. Chapter 6. Ghost no more. The moment he decided to unmask himself wasn't dramatic. He was near the gelato cart. Heard Lisette shriek about a dress. Saw a freshman flinch in fear. Saw Elena step in. Saw Portia lower her phone when Mia said, "Maybe clicks need concertos." Keanu exhaled. This wasn't just a kindness epidemic. This was a pandemic of empathy, and it needed amplification. He called the MC aside, whispered his plan. Watched the man's eyes go wide. "You're sure?" the MC asked. Keanu smiled. "Let's give them a real finale." Chapter 1. The glare after the spotlight. The applause was still echoing off the marble when Avery Hawksworth realized something terrifying. No one was looking at her. Not one camera. Not one compliment. Not one whisper. "Did you see what she wore?" They were all turned physically, emotionally toward Sandra Bullock, Keanu Reeves, and that adorable scholarship volunteer who now had gelato on her shoe and stardust in her eyes. Avery's champagne glass tilted a bit too far as she took a long sip. "Charming," she muttered, eyes on Sandra. So casual, so real. Behind her, Portia was furiously texting, probably posting a humble brag with hashtag unexpected human moment. Lisette stood silent, arms crossed, the last spoon of vanilla bean gelato melting in her designer clutch like poetic justice. The trio, once the gravitational center of every gala, now orbited around someone else's sun. It stung. Worse, it confused them. Chapter 2. Avery's paper crown litter. As guests mingled near the auction receipts, Avery slipped into the side corridor that led to the powder room. She didn't need the facility, she needed air that hadn't been filtered through social envy. She paused at the mirror. Her reflection stared back, poised and polished, but the cracks in her mascara were starting to betray her. Avery Hawksworth Nia Viva Greenbaum wasn't born into this. She'd reinvented herself through sheer will and well-timed marriages. Her childhood had been spent above a bodega in Queens, with a father who vanished when she was 6 and a mother who never smiled without apologizing for it. At 15, Avery had decided that survival was aesthetic. She studied fashion magazines like Holy Scripture, practiced her voice until it purred like a glass of scotch, learned to walk like her heels didn't hurt and to laugh like money didn't matter. Until it did. Her husband, William Hawksworth III, had seemed like salvation. Ivy League, old money, an oil fortune, and parents who kept their racism politely. folded inside country club dress codes. She learned their language, raised the right glass at the right toast, became their perfect doll in the perfect case. But the doll was aging now. The whispers had started about lines, about laugh wrinkles, about subtle maintenance that wasn't subtle enough. Avery leaned closer to the mirror. "Don't blink," she whispered to herself. "Blink, and they replace you." And then, from the next stall over, a voice she recognized. She's still got it. Though, Sandra, she doesn't try. That's the trick, I guess. Lisette. Avery froze. "She just is," Lisette continued. "It's infuriating." "I know," Portia replied from somewhere near the paper towels. "It's like her authenticity has a six-pack." They weren't mocking Sandra. They were confessing. That made it worse. Because if even her clique felt the pull of gravity's shift, then maybe Avery's reign was already over. Chapter 3. Lisette's lipstick empire cracks. Lisette Montclair sat alone at the edge of the terrace, her lavender gown blotched with faint vanilla, and even fainter regret. She turned her phone over in her hands. No new messages, no missed calls, which meant no updates from her father's lawyer. No news was never good news when your family's company was quietly hemorrhaging money. Faster than your PR team could arrange aspirational interviews, Montclair Organics, the once thriving beauty brand that sold cruelty-free lipstick to women who hadn't cried in years, was one bad quarter away from collapse. Lisette wasn't just the face of the brand. She was the collateral. She'd launched her entire identity from that empire. Her bio on every panel and event: brand ambassador, creative director, heiress. If it fell, she wouldn't just be broke. She'd be irrelevant, and worse, replaceable. Sandra's single quotes s. Grace under fire had hit Lisette like a sucker punch. The woman had been humiliated, soaked, insulted, and had somehow walked out of it with more power than Lisette could buy with a year's PR budget. Lisette had weaponized shame. Sandra had neutralized it. How do you compete with someone who turns being underestimated into an art form? She sighed, slipping off one heel to rub her aching foot. Her mother used to say, "Pretty only works until somebody in flats outsmarts you." Sandra had just done it in heels, in silk, and while saving a profiterole tower from collapse. Well played, Bullock. Chapter 4. Portia's filters slip. Portia Caldwell had over 5.2 million followers for brand sponsorships and one very tightly wound therapist. She also had a secret one she never posted, pinned, filtered, or shared. Her father was in jail. Wire fraud. Classy kind. The kind that wears cufflinks and smiles in mugshots. When the scandal broke 3 years ago, Portia's manager had locked her in a hotel room and rewritten her bio from rising lifestyle influencer to wellness advocate. With a heart for reform, a few crying on the stairs TikToks, and a yoga retreat later, and the public forgave her. Mostly. But the shame still stuck like foundation in her pores. That's why she clung to glamour, to control, to perfect lighting and non-fat sponsorships and wordless captions like manifesting peace. Next to $800 salads. It worked until tonight. Until Mia, a kid who hadn't even posted about her dessert tower, stood tall and powdered sugar-streaked pride and whispered something true. Maybe clicks need concertos sometimes. It hadn't just been clever. It had been correct. Portia had filmed 1,000 raw moments, but she'd forgotten how to actually feel them. Chapter 5. 3 women, 1 mirror. Back inside, Avery returned to the main hall and paused. Lisette was already there, at the bar, sipping soda water with a napkin wrapped around her glass like a security blanket. Portia hovered beside the dessert cart, pretending not to stare at Mia. They didn't speak. Not yet. But they didn't look at Sandra with scorn anymore. They looked at her with a different emotion entirely, one that flickered somewhere between curiosity and envy. Avery exhaled and whispered just loud enough for herself to hear, "Maybe we've been aiming at the wrong targets." Lisette turned, slightly, as if she'd heard. Portia blinked and looked away, and for the first time all night, the 3 women pillars of perfection stood in the same room, unsure of their footing. Chapter 1. The gavel risest ballroom had shifted. It wasn't just the lighting which had softened to that warm, golden Instagram at dusk hue, or the music which had dipped to a polite hum. It was the mood. The gala had transformed from a performance into something personal. Keanu Reeves had taken the stage. Sandra Bullock stood off to the side, watching with quiet pride, and the socialite Savory, Lisette, and Portia each stood in different corners of the room, all very much in their feelings. But now came the live auction, and Keanu had one last move. Chapter 2. The auctioneer's voice trembles. Ladies and gentlemen, the MC said, clearing his throat, we have one final surprise item on the docket tonight. A ripple of excitement. The MC gestured toward the stage as an assistant wheeled out a large easel, draped in velvet. Oh yes, velvet. Nothing says high drama like a fabric you're not allowed to sit on. Item number 23, the MC announced, is a one-of-a-kind experience. No starting bid, no reserve. Tonight only. He turned toward the man beside him, Mr. Reeves. Keanu stepped forward, unhurried, still calm, still in control, but his eyes glittered with something sharper now. Tonight's final auction item, Keanu said into the mic, isn't a yacht weekend, or a private chef, or even a trip to space. He smiled, it's a promise. Chapter 3. The velvet comes off. Keanu reached out and pulled the velvet down. Underneath was a giant whiteboard. Taped to it were half a dozen drawings, each one from a different child, each one a crayon masterpiece of hope, wild imagination, and wobbly spelling. Tigers, books, libraries made of candy canes, flying books with superhero capes. Gasps rippled through the room. This, Keanu said, gesturing, is what you've been supporting tonight. Not just literacy, not just test scores, you've been funding imagination. He took a breath. And this one, he pointed to the tiger drawing Sandra had bid on, was almost dismissed by a guest here as quaint kindergarten art. Heads turned, people whispered. One socialite in lavender gelato-stained silk winced noticeably. But another guest, Keanu continued, saw its value. Not in dollars, in dreams. Chapter 4. A very different auction. So, Keanu said, now walking slowly across the stage. Here's the deal. You're not bidding for a drawing. You're bidding to sponsor a school, one of 6 pilot schools. We're funding through tonight's gala. Each of these drawings represents a different campus, a real place, real kids. The MC stepped back. This wasn't on the program anymore. This was Keanu's show now. Your bid covers supplies, books, library staffing, and art programs. You'll receive updates. You'll see the impact. And you'll receive, if you wanted, a framed original drawing by a student who'll know your name. He paused, but I hope you'll do it even if they never know you, because they're worth it. A moment of silence followed, quiet, reverent. Then, 50,000, someone shouted. 75, another voice rang. A bidding war erupted, not for art, not for ego, but for meaning. Sandra watched, stunned. What had started as an insult turned into the night's biggest moment of generosity. Chapter 5. The tiger roars louder. Tiger drawing, the one Darnell had created, received the most attention. It was personal now. Guests wanted that tiger, the one that had started it all. Sandra stepped forward. Can I say something? Keanu handed her the mic without a word. The room quieted again. All eyes on her. That tiger, she said, was drawn by an 8-year-old boy in South Central. His name is Darnell. He loves comic books and wants to be a paleontologist. He thinks tigers are just prehistoric cats with better press. Laughter. His reading level jumped 3 grades in 1 year because someone donated books to his school. But the library needs more, and not just books, someone to read with. Someone who believes a kid with crayons can change the world. She looked at Keanu. That's why I bid on this drawing. Not because it matches my study, because it reminded me of my first parachute. Keanu smiled. Books aren't a privilege, he said, echoing the librarian from his memory. They're a parachute. And just like that, another bid flew. 100,000. Chapter 6. The moment of truth. Somewhere near the back of the room, Avery lowered her bidding paddle slowly. Her hand had hovered, uncertain, not because she didn't want to help, but because she wasn't sure if the help would seem performative, if people would think she was doing damage control. Lisette clutched her checkbook tightly. Her father's lawyer had finally texted bad news. The company's days were numbered. But somehow, she still wanted to bid, even if it meant asking. The foundation for a payment plan. Portia opened her phone and closed the app. She didn't post, didn't film. She raised her paddle instead. 85,000, she said aloud. Not for content, for connection. Keanu caught her eye and gave a subtle nod. Just between two people who were really trying to be better. Chapter 1. The quiet cleanup. Midnight clung gently to the walls of the San Marino Hall of Philanthropy. The chandeliers had dimmed. Most of the guests had drifted away, and the clink of champagne flutes had given way to the quiet scuffle of folding chairs and tired heels. Sandra Bullock stood barefoot by the dessert table, holding the last profiterole in her hand like it was a victory medal. She didn't eat it. She just smiled at it like a parent would a messy toddler, proud and slightly sticky. Saving the best for last, Keanu appeared beside her, sleeves rolled up, body undone. Saving it for Mia, actually, Sandra said. She's still helping the crew box up dishes. Keanu gave a low whistle. That kid's got range. First desserts, now dish duty. She's applying for 10 scholarships, Sandra said. She's got a work ethic NASA could launch. Keanu nodded. I want her resume, or maybe just her permission to follow her round for inspiration. Chapter 2. Rooftop reflections. Months later, the two found themselves on the rooftop garden, a lesser-known feature of the hall, with ivy-wrapped railings and a sweeping view of downtown Los Angeles glittering like a spilled jewelry box. Keanu leaned on the railing. You handled tonight like a storm in heels. Sandra chuckled. Storms don't wear silk. They wear rubber boots and ruin weddings. He gave her a side glance. Still, that water-on-silk moment. You didn't flinch. Oh, I flinched, she said. On the inside, I was ready to throat chop someone with a butter knife. But I heard my mom's voice. Let me guess. Don't engage the mean girls. No. Pick your battles like you pick your shoes. If you're gonna run, wear flats. Keanu burst out laughing. Remind me to quote her in every interview I ever give. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, the city buzzing softly beneath them. Chapter 3. A letter in a pocket. Sandra reached into her clutch and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Mia gave me this before she left, she said. She wrote it in the kitchen during dessert rush. She unfolded it and read aloud. Dear Ms. Bullock, you probably don't remember all the things you said tonight, but I do. You didn't just save my profiterole tower. You saved my belief that kindness still matters, even when the cameras are off. One day, I'll host a gala, and I hope you'll crash my kitchen and remind someone else that they're not invisible. Also, I hid the extra cream puffs in your purse. You earned them. Love. Mia. Sandra laughed softly, then dabbed her eyes with the corner of her shawl. She's gonna run the world. She already is, Keanu said. Chapter 4. The apologies begin. Back downstairs, the trio of socialites stood in a rare configuration side by side, without audience, phones, or pretense. Lisette was the first to speak. We were awful tonight, Avery sighed. Not our finest hour. Portia looked genuinely uncomfortable without her ring light. I have no idea how to apologize without hashtags. They turned as Sandra re-entered the room. She stopped when she saw them, eyebrows raised, chin slightly lifted. Avery stepped forward. Sandra, we owe you an apology. Lisette nodded. We were petty, jealous, Portia added, and bored, which is apparently a dangerous combo. Sandra regarded them a moment. Let me guess, she said. You watched me be graceful, then felt like trash. Yes, Avery said quickly. No point sugarcoating it. Sandra smiled, tired, but kind. Well, I've been where you are. Maybe not at this altitude of luxury, but I know what it feels like to lose your footing in a room full of people who expect perfection. Lisette blinked. You do. I was bullied in middle school. My tuna sandwiches were legendary for all the wrong reasons. A beat. Portia snorted. Were you the kid who cried in the library? Sandra smiled. I was the kid who turned the library into armor. The tension broke. Just slightly, but enough. Chapter 5. An invitation. Rewritten. Avery reached into her clutch and pulled out an envelope. This was supposed to be an invitation, she said, to our summer yacht event. Usually influencers and legacy donors. Sandra raised an eyebrow. Is that a threat or a promise? Neither, Avery said. But this time, we're changing the guest list. Lisette added, we want to feature kids, young entrepreneurs. Mia, for starters, we were hoping you'd help us find them. Sandra took the envelope, surprised. Portia cleared her throat. And I'm launching a content series, unfiltered good, not sponsored. No ads, just people doing kind things. Sandra blinked. You'd let kindness go viral? I'll even turn off the ring light, Portia said solemnly. They stood there, three women who'd weaponized elegance and now just wanted to be real. Sandra gave a small, tired nod. You want redemption? Earn it and bring snacks. Avery smiled. Fair.